bad news is that our food system is indeed broken. But the good news is that if you study history, you can learn a little bit about how to help fix it and how to help mend it. About 10 years ago, I was cooking dinner for my family, and as I was chopping the broccoli, I stopped for a second and started marveling at this little piece of beautiful broccoli in front of me. And I remember thinking to myself, I wanted to learn everything I possibly could about this beautiful little piece of food. Who grew it, where it came from, all the different people that have eaten it over the course of history, how they've eaten it. And so I started buying all of my produce, as much as I could, from local farmers and at farmers markets, and asking them all sorts of inane questions that they politely answered. And then I went back to school to start studying it, and then I started teaching it. So what does my obsession with broccoli have to do with a broken food system? Well, it's pretty simple. Because when I started studying broccoli, I started learning how difficult it is actually to grow broccoli in this country for economic reasons. And then I learned the irony of that 40% of the food that we grow in this country doesn't get eaten. And then a further irony that there's 17 million children who don't know where their next meal is coming from. And to add almost the penultimate irony, the food and beverage industry spends between $2 and $10 billion a year marketing processed foods to children, marketing to those same children. So essentially, when you've been hearing people all day talk about food system, that's what we're talking about. This entire system, from seed to plate, is a part of a larger political and economic system. And as I said before, that system is broken. So as a mom of 5, I decided that I wanted to do what I could to help fix this broken system. And I figured that the best thing to do was to look around at the other people that were doing things, because I couldn't be the only one, right? And I did. I started looking around, and turns out, like many of you in here who have been doing it for years and years, for decades, there have been people working to make our food system safer and healthier and fairer. And most of us are what I call accidental activists, which means that we had absolutely no intention of being advocates or getting political or fighting the man. We just loved our broccoli or our strawberries, and we started seeing that there were cracks in this system and they didn't make sense. So for 30 some odd years, people have been working to protect the soil and the animals and the water and the air and our children and the growers that grow our food and the seeds that we plant, and the consumers. Because at the heart of it, and the question is, do we have a food movement? And the heart of it is yes, we have a food movement, because all of us fighting for all of those different pieces are doing so because we believe that fair food is a fundamental human right. Thanks. Thanks to the one person who, yay! Thanks, guys! Okay, thank you. That was nice. And so we are at a critical stage right now in that movement, because it's kind of going out of the hands of the fighters and the activists and the people leading these coalitions. And the general public is starting to understand more and more that the seeds that we plant and the way that the growers are treated, to the transportation systems and the processing, to the school food we've been talking about today, all of it has everything to do with politics and policy. And though a lot of people in this room might understand that, that is something that is just starting to reach the public at large. And perhaps what's more important or more pivotal right now is that people are starting to see that there is a direct correlation between family income and access to fresh foods. So yes, it's important to vote with your fork. And yes, it's important to vote with your food dollars. But this is a political system, and that means we have to change the system through policy. And that's why we have social movements. Social movements are our way of changing policy. But as you can see, and this is what I want to kind of give the optimistic tone to this, what you can see is that social movements take a very long time. They're not overnight changes. And so if you look at just the very right to vote, It took 41 years from the first convention in Seneca Falls to the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920. That's 41 years for women to actually have the right to vote. Forget about everything after that, voting. And it took over 100 years from the Emancipation Proclamation to the Civil Rights Act of 1968. And I'm not saying that either one of these movements has succeeded and we're done and yahoo, we can all go home. No, they haven't. But what I'm talking about is legislative change. So you have social behavioral change and then you have legislative change, which means laws and rules enacted that protect everything that we've been talking about today. And if you look at the current movement in that context, we're right where we should be. We have a lot of social change, we have a lot of behavioral change, and we have some really cool legislative developments that have been happening. Is it enough? No. Do we have a long way to go? Hells yeah. But again, answering the people who are concerned about whether we have one movement, again, my answer, if you look at history, is yes. Because just like other movements before us, there are a lot of entry places. There are people who care about all different things in our movement and in movements before us, but we all care about one fundamental issue, and that's food justice. And food justice covers all of the different issues that we've been talking about. And food justice doesn't mean, like me, that you'll be weeping over broccoli making dinner in 50 years, although, I hope you are. But food justice means that everyone in this country, and hopefully further, will have access to fresh, unadulterated broccoli, will have the opportunity to stand there and look at this broccoli and feel good about it. So like other social movements, this social movement starts, as we all know, with people who have ideas about what is just and what is fair and what is right. And those people take their flashlights, and you know the expression, they join up with other people, like-minded people, and they form organizations, and they form community groups. And those flashlights grow. And then we do something that I'll talk about in a minute called bridging. And bridging means that those organizations come together and coalesce and collaborate with other organizations. And then they do something called amplifying. And that doesn't mean that they come together because it feels warm and fuzzy, but they come together to shed light on issues and make the public more aware. So who is the guy who came up with bridging and amplifying? He's a sociologist. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of him, but he's my new crush. His name is Herbert Bloomer. And he was a sociologist who, in 1969, defined social movements as groups of people coming together to enact social change. Social change, not a flash mob, not a movie theater line, large-scale social change. And he categorized social movements into 4 stages, which again, I think is really helpful for us if we use history to learn from. And the first stage is emergence. So people becoming aware of the broken system, people starting to talk about it and fight about it and write books about it, like so many of you have in this room. You're our leaders. You have emerged. We have emerged. The second stage is what's called coalescence, which is the one I think we're in now. It's long and it's hard and it's tiresome. And it means that all of these different organizations are sometimes having to reach outside of our own individual missions a little bit and forming collaborations with other people and other organizations to bring the public into it as a full-scale movement. Institutionalization means that there is more and more legislation regarding all of these fair food issues, which I think we're starting to see, but we're not there yet. And then the last stage is decline, which sounded a little depressing when I first read it, but actually it's a really good thing because it means that you don't need a movement anymore, it just is the status quo. So decline is like good. So right now we're in this coalescence phase where people from all different parts of this food movement are coming together. People on the production side, people on the consumption side, people who are worried about the planet and the seeds and school children. And we're all starting to come together and coalesce, and it's happening right here in this room. It's happening across the country. It's happening in New York City. I know it's happening, and I know so many of you are part of these coalescing collaboration movements. But in my case, I want to talk about a very specific way that I can show you what coalescence is, and it comes back to my broccoli, which I always like to talk about. So my obsession with broccoli led me down this path, and I eventually became involved with 2 different nonprofit organizations in New York. The first one's called Just Food, and I think people from Just Food are here. But basically, any kind of community supported food project. So a project of a community for a community that connects that community to farming or to agriculture. Anything that sort of bridges upstate and downstate together is something that Just Food will be a part of. And the second organization is Edible Schoolyard New York City. Kate, our executive director, is right there. And what we do at Edible is we build school gardens in food deserts, and we also build kitchen classrooms so that we can have like a very integrated growing and eating and serving experience for the children in these classrooms. And about a year ago, we were sitting talking about Edible, and we were increasingly concerned because we had almost done such a great job introducing fresh and good produce to these children and teaching them how to use it and teaching them how to eat it. And then they would tell us that they would go home and their families had no means of replicating those meals. And that's a terrible and yet pretty amazing problem to have, because they wanted to be able to replicate those meals. And going outside of our mission, we're an education nonprofit, we reached out to Just Food. And these two organizations have now collaborated in a way that, like those two little flashlights, have made a strobe light. Because in about a month or so from now, if you walk by 119th Street in Lexington, you will see the children from the Edible Schoolyard Project, the third graders, selling and marketing the produce not only that they grow in their school garden, but from a regional farmer, because Just Food has trained their teachers how to train them to run a market. And that market is going to accept SNAP, which is the program formerly known as food stamps. And we are creating a project within that community where the community is then going to be able to share what they've learned and what they've grown. And it's starting with the children. So I'm very, very proud of that collaboration. And it's happening all over the place. Thanks. Thank you. So I'm running out of time, and I just want to say that we are where we should be, and I'm not saying to slow down, but I am saying for those of you in the food movement that are discouraged that we haven't gone far enough or fast enough, we're right where we should be in terms of history. And for those of you outside of the movement who don't know we have a problem, we do, so it's time to get on board. And we want to get on board because we want, at the end of the day, a fair food system, and what does that look like? That means every school child can eat a nutritious lunch every day. And it means that fresh vegetables are available at every corner store in even the poorest neighborhoods. It means that those who have very little to spend on food aren't forced into a diet of processed and sugary foods that makes them sick. And it means that farmers and our growers don't have to be worried about paying for their kids' education because their work is valued. It means that people know what they're buying because they have real choice, because they can see on the label. So now it's time for us, in Herbert Bloomer's words, to bridge and amplify and share the broccoli.